I would just respond to the comment that's just been made that there's only one party who will defend the Australian people. And I can think of no better words to do that than to quote probably one of Australia's recognised preeminent journalists when it comes to foreign affairs and defence matters, someone who has been critical of my own side of politics, but has written just this week in The Australian, and I quote, "The Albanese government is coming apart in foreign policy, national security and defence. It has become incoherent and indecipherable. It consistently tries to hide basic information, can't maintain cabinet unity or policy consistency. Its ministers frequently contradict each other and often seem to have no idea what they're talking about." End quote. And I think that describes the fact that in the issue that was raised by my colleague Senator Patterson, we've just been hearing about from those opposite, that the government was caught flat-footed in terms of responding to the High Court decision. And as they said, the court made a ruling and the government needs to respond to that and respect it. But the fact is a government that governs well anticipates these possible outcomes and actually plans what they will do in order to respond to them. And so the comments by Mr Sheridan, not only in this area but particularly in the area of defence and national security, I think are apt, and the Australian people would be well served to look at not what is said but what actually happens. And I do come back to Mr Sheridan and actually look at another part of his article where he says, and I quote, "The government started off well," and he's mentioning here on China, but security issues generally, and Mr Albanese made strong, substantial speeches in opposition. But now it looks as though those were purely designed to neutralise national security as an election issue. End quote. So it's important to look at what the Albanese government does as opposed to what it says. Can I come to the other issue that was raised by coalition senators at the start, and this is to the funding of the Environmental Defenders Offices. My colleagues have mentioned Mr Joel Fitzgibbon, and as a former staunch and very high-profile member of Labor governments, he has criticised this funding. Why has he done that? Well, he's done that for a number of reasons. One, he's mentioned the fact that it kills jobs and it kills investment, but why is that investment important? Well, the investment is important because when I speak to constituents in South Australia, my home state at the moment, the number one, number two, number three, number four, number five priority they raise with me is cost of living, and central to that is the price of electricity. Now, far from delivering the reduction of $270-odd that was promised by this government multiple times before the election, South Australian prices have actually gone up on average by about $512 for households, $1,310 for small businesses, so 24% for households and 29% for small businesses. And that is hurting people. It's hurting the ability of small businesses to remain viable and to employ people, and it's hurting households, not to mention mortgages and other things. But part of the reason those prices are going up is because gas is more and more becoming one of the baseload power sources in the market, and as supply is constrained, and so according to the Australian Energy Market Operator and the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the East Coast may well run short of gas as soon as 2024 because supply is being constrained, and this could force prices to spike, increasing electricity bills and cause gaps in the energy market. Now, why is this happening? Partly because groups like the Environmental Defenders Office, now with government money from the Albanese government, are taking action against groups like Santos, a good South Australian company who for many decades have been responsibly providing the nation with energy, and their Barossa Fields project off the Northern Territory coast was stopped in its tracks, even though Santos had followed all of the requirements according to the well-proven and established regulation for consultation. It was stopped by the Environmental Defenders Office taking an action on behalf of a group within the Tiwi Islands. This government is not good for Australia's defence, nor the cost of living.